As we have already discussed, anticoagulation is the sheet anchor of treatment of atrial fibrillation. We know that atrial fibrillation is a powerful risk factor for stroke, TIA and systemic thromboembolism. The most important treatment in atrial fibrillation is of course anticoagulation. Acute cardioversion is risky without the backdrop of anticoagulation because once the sinus rhythm is restored, the clot can get dislodged from the atria into the ventricle and thence into the systemic circuit. This risk is same either for electrical or for pharmacological cardioversion. Thromboembolism risk increases if atrial fibrillation is more than 48 hours because an atrial fibrillation which lasts for more than 48 hours gives enough time for the stasis of blood to occur and the clot to form in the atria which can get dislodged. Effective anticoagulation reduces the risk by threefold. Initiation of anticoagulation can be done with heparin for rapidity of action and will be followed up with of course warfarin, or sometimes we can use low molecular weight heparin, or the unfractionated heparin can also be used in place of unfractionated heparin, which will be followed by oral treatment with warfarin. Nowadays we have got another drug, the oral thrombin inhibitor ximelagatron. The advantage with this drug is we don't require to do the frequent international normalized ratios and blood tests. This is an oral drug. This probably may replace warfarin in the future. What are the factors or risk factors which increase the development of stroke and thromboembolic complications in a case of atrial fibrillation? Male gender, advancing age, rheumatic valvular heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, coronary artery disease, left ventricular dysfunction, heart failure and prior history of TIA or stroke. These are the most important factors which we have to consider, particularly the last one. The prior history of TIA or stroke puts the patient at a higher risk of recurrent stroke and due to atrial fibrillation. All these factors have to be assessed in all cases of atrial fibrillation so that we can make a prediction about the probability of they getting a stroke and systemic thromboembolism. There is a scoring system called the CHARTS-2 scoring system. Here the points are assigned for each one of the conditions. Here the C stands for cardiac failure. The patient has got cardiac failure, give 1 point. H stands for hypertension, 1 point. Age more than 75, A stands for age more than 75, 1 point. D stands for diabetes. Diabetes, if patient is a diabetic, give 1 point. If the patient has got stroke, you have to give 2 points. That is why the S2 there. For all the other ones, only 1 point. If the history of stroke or TIA or systemic thromboembolism, we have to give 2 points. So the total a patient can get will be all these things. If they are positive, 4 points plus 2, 6 points can be there, or it could be 0 points. The patient may have none of these things and have 0 points, or can have a combination of these things and have 1, 2, 3, 4, at the most up to 6 points. Depending on these points, the patient's risk for thromboembolism is stratified and action is proposed in the subsequent slides. So this chart scoring system is very simple, easy to apply and then very useful to stratify the patients for treatment. Look at this table. This is based on chart score. What is the stroke incidence? The higher the chart score, the greater the incidence of stroke. The chart score is 0, the stroke incidence is 1.9. Chart score is 1, 2.8. Chart score is 2, the adjusted stroke incidence is 4% per year. Chart score of 3, 5.9% per year. 4, 8.5% per year. 5 chart score, 12.5% per year, and 6 chart score, 18.2% per year. So a patient who has got no risk factors, he has got a stroke incidence of 1.9% per year, versus a person who has got all the risk factors and the chart score is 6, his chance of getting a stroke in an year is almost 1/5. So, this is for non-valvular atrial fibrillation. If a patient has got valvular atrial fibrillation, the risk is much higher. How do we stratify the patient based on the risk factors? The risk factors are classified as high risk factors and moderate risk factors and other risk factors. This is again for non-valvular atrial fibrillation treatment. If the patient has got valvular disease like mitral valve stenosis, regurgitation, tricuspid stenosis, tricuspid regurgitation, aortic valve disease, all of them put the patient in a much higher stratum. Patients who do not have valvular disease, they are classified based on the risk factor. They have high risk factors like prior stroke or TIA or systemic thromboembolic event. We classify such a patient as a high risk patient. And the moderate risk patients are those who are age more than 75, heart failure, hypertension, ejection fraction less than 35 or diabetes mellitus. These are classified as moderate risk factors. Other risk factors are female gender, coronary artery disease, increased thyroid function and age less than 75 or other risk factors. Depending on these risk factors, we can stratify them and the treatment is tailored. What we give to them to prevent the systemic thromboembolism depends on these risk factors, which we will see in our subsequent slide. Patients are grouped and recommended the following treatments into 3 categories. The first category is patients who are less than 65 and who have no risk factor. That means the chart score is 0 and the age is less than 65. Such a patient we treat only with aspirin 325 milligrams per day and do not give him any oral anticoagulants. Patients who are aged 65 to 75 and who have diabetes, who have coronary artery disease, they come under medium risk category. And if they have got one of these 3 risk factors, then give them aspirin. If they have more than 2 risk factors, if they have 2 risk factors, give them warfarin. Okay, age 65 to 75, diabetes mellitus, coronary artery disease. Out of them, 1 risk factor is there, only aspirin. 2 risk factors, warfarin is given, keeping the INR between 2 and 3. Let us say the patient has got all the 3 risk factors like age between 65 and 75, diabetes and also coronary artery disease. He automatically moves into the higher risk category, that is more than 2 moderate risk factors, or the higher risk factors like age more than 75, hypertension, left ventricular dysfunction, mitral valvular disease, prosthetic heart valve, stroke history, TIA, pulmonary embolism, or as I said, if more than 2 of the above moderate risk factors are present, then no question of giving them aspirin, they should be put on warfarin and keep the international normalized ratio a little higher at 2.5 to 3.5 instead of being 2 to 3. This is because this category of patients are at a grave risk for thromboembolic complications. So, this is the recommendation based on the risk category in cases of atrial fibrillation when we treat them with anticoagulants. This slide summarizes the risk of thromboembolism, how it is associated with age. In persons less than 60 years of age, the risk of thromboembolism is 1.5%. If the patient is more than 80 years of age, the risk of thromboembolism is 23.5%. Almost 1/4 of the patients of more than 80 with atrial fibrillation develop systemic thromboembolism. So, they are the candidates who must go for continuous long-term anticoagulation therapy. As we have already stated earlier, one of our goals of management is prevention of thromboembolism, the most important goal among all. Atrial fibrillation is associated with the risk of increased thromboembolism, increased stroke, increased TIA, increased peripheral embolism. Anticoagulation with heparin and warfarin to decrease the thromboembolism. Anticoagulation, the risk of fatal bleeding is another side effect. We have to always monitor the INR, and it should be kept anywhere between 2 to 3, or in high risk patients between 2.5 and 3.5. Antiplatelet treatment with aspirin, clopidogrel to reduce the thromboembolism. Use the CHAD score, CHAD-S2 score to stratify the patients. CHAD-S2 score of 0 need only aspirin or clopidogrel. CHAD-S2 score of 3 or above need warfarin and or heparin. A score of 1 or 2, see history of stroke, TIA, CAD, hypertension and females. Depending on that, you institute the anticoagulant measures to prevent thromboembolism. Once we have put the patient on warfarin or anticoagulation on long-term basis, we have to be very much aware of the risk of bleeding. How to assess the risk of bleeding? If the patient has got history of bleeding, previous history of bleeding, give 2 points. Hepatic or renal disease, give 1 point. History of alcohol abuse, 1 point. History of malignancy, 1 point. Older age more than 75, 1 point. Aspirin therapy already on, 1 point. Reduced platelet count less than 1 lakh, 1 point. Hypertension, 1 point. Anemia, 1 point. Genetic predisposition, 1 point. Excessive fall risk, that is again 1 point, due to poor eyesight, due to osteoarthritic problems, due to prosthetic foot or things like that. Excessive fall could be a history that we elicit from the patient. And patients of stroke, already known stroke, 1 more point. So these points are summated, and then depending on the number of points, the risk for bleeding is assessed. Let us see the next slide. This summarizes the major bleeds per 100 patient years. Supposing from the previous slide we get the patient score and his score is 0 points, then his risk for bleed is 1.9%, and if he has got 1 point it is 2.5%. For patient with 2 points it is 5.3%, with 3 points it is 8.4%, with 4 points it is 10.4%, and then at 5 or more points it is 12.3%. Bleeding risk outweighs the benefit, then no anticoagulation. Pregnancy, especially first trimester and elective surgery, we have to suspend the anticoagulation. Anybody who has got more than 3 points, we have to consider the bleeding risk is higher in such an individual.